Hello and welcome out to the Dice Tower. I'm Wendy Yi.
And I'm Chris Yi.
And I am excited to announce that we will be reviewing the expansion Revive Call of the Abyss.
Call of the Wild, I have called it many a time, but it is not what it's called. So this is an expansion from the same designers as the original core game. This has been a game favored here at the Dice Tower and review-wise. One might even say that was their favorite game from 2 years ago.
This is my second most favorite game from last year at the end of the year, but it has definitely become number one.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, so an expansion came out. I was hesitantly excited because hey, for one of my, a great game. Hesitant because many expansions blow it.
That's true. I'm not typically an expansion person. Let me go ahead and show you what comes in the box. Here I have all the components for Revive Call of the Abyss expansion, and it has a variety of different unique changes. This is one of the big ones. So we have this additional track over here, and this is victory points, just like the other victory point track. However, this just gives you different bonuses. One of the main bonuses is that you actually get to switch out cards to get bigger, better, stronger cards. So these over here are the Scyphoz cards, and if you look, their bonuses at the bottom and at the top are super strong. They're amazing cards. And so these actually can be added into your deck when you reach these bonus points over here. You just switch out cards to gain those. We also have some stuff that just gets mixed in with the base game. It's one of those expansions that has more of what you already know. So you have the basic deck cards that come over here. They have some unique abilities like this track over here lets you move up on this track, or sorry, the symbol says move up on the track. It does cool stuff with the discard. It also has trade-in benefits. So as you can see, these green arrows trade stuff in. There's a lot of that you see in the game. We also have some other stuff mixed in over here. So these are lakes that will mix in, and these are just giving you extra income bonuses, victory points, and some items and stuff like that. But these lakes will go out and they can just be mixed in with the regular tiles that come out on the main board. We also have these machine tokens over here. These have one-time use, so some of them will have these little explosion symbols on them. That means once they're used, you only use it once. Like this says, pull everything from your discard pile and add it to your hand. And what that will do is that will actually then become just a vial at the end of the game. So this can be a multiplier if you're scoring for those. And once again, they let you move up on the track. They let you do some even exchanges and stuff. That is one thing that I didn't mention about the track. If you look at the very top up here, it actually, when you gain points on one of the tracks or the others, you can always choose to move on the opposite track with a 2-to-1 ratio. So stuff like this lets you move 1-to-1. You also have these slot module tokens over here, and these all have trade-in effects. So be able to gain the effect, for example, moving up on the new track, you have to be able to switch in a gear. So they have those green symbols at the top. Then we have these cards over here. These are cool because they are objectives that you can collect throughout the game. You can actually spend your switch to be able to take one of these objectives into hand, and then at any time you can choose to complete it. For example, this says for if you have meeples that are out on the board, you can trade it in when you have 2 meeples and you can get 2 movement on the track. 4 meeples 3, and then 6 meeples 4. Once you trade it in, you actually flip it over and it becomes, hey, guess what? Another vial for your endgame multiplier. So it makes those vials more viable. All right, and then we have new player powers over here. So this Ostarius faction actually has these tiles that you lay out on the main board, and they give you benefits for whatever they cover up, but then they permanently cover up those spaces, and then you can flip them over whenever you rest, and depending on what side they're on depends on what effect you get. You can either move through them or you can expand from them and those kind of things. The Gib works over here have these little gadget tokens, and they will flip over, or you can slowly flip them over throughout the game and then they reset and stuff, I think, when you rest. But they give you these cool benefits as you use them and as you play them. You also have the Cordycephians. Wow, I've never tried to pronounce that name before. But these ones over here, these have leech tokens, and basically when you can play on other people's spaces, and when you do so, you give them a leech token, and then there are benefits for people that have leech tokens. For example, copy one of the leech players' technologies, those kind of things. So you want to give out leech tokens, and you can go on other people's spaces. Then finally, we have the Kairos clan, and this has a day marker and a night marker whenever you whenever you hibernate. So whenever you rest, you can actually flip this over. And depending on what side it's on, depends on whether you get the dark side or the light side benefit on your player board of powers. So there you go. That is what is in the Call of the Abyss expansion for Revive. There's a lot of good stuff there. Some really unique things as well as more of the same, like these things that you add in. All right, so that's what comes in the game. Quick clarification, those Scyphoz cards, you don't discard a card, you draw 2, you pick 1. So
Scyphozoa.
Scypho what?
Scyphozoa.
I don't know how to pronounce it.
Everybody's doing the Scyphozoa. Boom, 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 boom. Yeah.
That's what you call this move?
That's the Scyphozoa.
What is that move called? The diver?
It's called the jellyfish. I don't know. We're trying to really make this exciting because this is a dry, heavy, boring Eurogame review. No.
It's highly thematic, Chris. The world has gone to pot, and somehow these magical sea creatures have come to life.
Yeah. What are they called again?
Scyphoz. It's like Tchaikovsky's, that's what they're called.
Yeah, scientific term for jellyfish. Anyway, so this is a modular expansion. It has multiple different things. Do you want to first talk about just the more stuff?
Sure, the more of the same kind of things.
More base game cards, more of the tokens, the machines and
little
whatnot.
Machines and stuff. So I honestly, this is the type of expansion I don't love, which is funny because I was talking to Tom and he's like, oh, I love those expansions. They're so easy to put in. I'm like, I just feel like they water it down. When
you say this type, you mean stuff that they're just like, here's more cards for the deck. Just that part.
Yeah, more cards for the deck, more machines that you pick through, just that kind of stuff. Because I feel like base games are usually really well balanced and they give you enough of what you want. And so when you throw in an expansion, I always worry that the balance is off. Or if you don't mix it up, you get mostly expansion stuff and not basic stuff, and does it mess things up?
Or my least favorite, here's like 5 new cards, you shuffle it into a deck of 90, and you're like, I hope I see an expansion card.
Right, I don't see any of them. Yeah.
I think this one balances it pretty well, where the new effects are good. They're not so wacky that they feel like, oh, this is like tricky or difficult to use. They are a little bit trickier, I think, to manage well than just the base game machines and cards.
I think specifically those modules that you tuck on your board, they're all trade-ins. So you have to have those gem or crystals, what do they call them? You have to have the crystals. You have to have stuff to trade in. And if you're not set up for that, you're like, it's a whole wasted module. Like, why did I put that there? So there's just that little bit of complaint I have. I think overall the cards, I like the cards. I think they're awesome and they work really well.
I think the new cards for the deck are my favorite just of the new stuff. Also the factions. So there's 4 new factions that you can play as. And I think that they are, once again, a little different feeling, but not so wacky. Sometimes you play a game and you're like, these feel like 5th expansion strange effects. And this has not done that. I like the factions. I like one gives you an alternate thing to do when you flip your switch, which was a useful thing in the base game, but kind of like boring, like one resource.
There's a lot of different alternates for the flip switch. So I think that they made the switch stronger. They made the vial potions stronger. The lake effects, like there's more abilities that go around a lake, so they add lakes in, and so it's just more interesting in that regard. I think there's a lot of good stuff in the adding more of the same. I really like the track. That new track with new bonuses, because you're still moving up on that old track as well, and so you're making those choices of you're like, is it worth it spending 2 for 1? I feel like it's never worth it spending 2 for 1.
I would have to be like on the cusp.
Because those are points.
We have to be on the cusp of like one of those upgrades.
Yeah, that'll really springboard.
Yeah, I love that while you get new movement on the track at the end of the game, it is 1-to-1 victory points.
Yeah.
I think that's good, right? Makes you question the 2-to-1 conversion. But there are other in-game effects that say you can 1-to-1 trade. And so you might say, I want to get the new Scyphozoa card. I want to get that extra step on this track instead of that one or something.
Yeah.
That's great.
I think there's some really cool stuff with the track. I also like having that extra scoring thing on the side. So when you reach a certain objective, you can then place a meeple on an endgame scoring. And I think that's so cool. Yeah.
Right. So it really encourages you. It says, you want to go at least 7 steps on the new track. And I think that's a smart thing to do. If you throw in a new mechanism in a game, make it worth my while. So far, everything that we've described in this expansion seems to be either like good, but like I really like the new track. So far, that's one of the great things. There are 3 new lakes that you put on the board.
Yep.
That have an instant and an ongoing effect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I
like a little income.
Yeah, and I like that because this game doesn't need tons of income, but having a little bit does feel nice.
It is nifty. Now, the last 2 things that we didn't talk about yet, the Scyphoz cards.
You sound like you're saying like some like Russian guy from the 1800s. Scyphoz, the famous composer
Yes.
of Russian ballet.
Those are one of my favorites. So just being able to move up on the track and get these really special, these super strong cards, I love that.
Their wild
They're
suit.
so powerful. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I forgot their wild suit. You're right.
So they can trigger all of your module microchip things, and their effects are just awesome.
Yes. Now, do be careful because I did get one that I thought, this is amazing. And then I realized it was one of those trade-in ones. So I played it without a crystal, and I was like, oops, I get nothing. I get nothing.
All right, so that's probably my favorite part, honestly, those colorless cards.
Those are amazing.
That do, just really strong effects. But what
I
is
also
the last
love
thing?
the objectives.
Oh.
I like objectives in games because I feel like it points you in a direction. It really rewards you. And so the fact that you can get these objectives, like you can gain them, but then later you can trade them in, I think is so cool. And it is a way to trash cards from your hand because you have to trash, or from your deck, you have to trash cards, remove them from the game to be able to get those objective cards. And so it allows you to thin that deck, especially those early on cards. You want to be able to see those Scyphoz cards.
Someone in the comments is like,
please, pronunciation guide.
I think the objectives are good, and my favorite part though is that they don't give you victory points; they give you the new track points.
Yes, which are still victory points.
Because otherwise, I wouldn't know if they would be like directly worth my while. They would still be worth my while, especially because there are benefits on the victory point track.
Yeah.
But you put it, you tie it to the new track, and you hooked me.
Oh, yeah. And I think that's the thing about this expansion is there's nothing in this expansion that you can really just play by itself. Maybe some of the factions. Maybe the factions.
A lot of the factions reward you with it. Maybe I made a mistake. I called this a module expansion earlier. I don't think that's right.
It's not a module expansion.
You're
That's
right.
the thing is like it all goes together. It all ties in. And I think that that's what's really cool is it doesn't just feel like, hey, I'll throw a couple extra cards in the deck and leave it at that. Like you need it all because it all synergizes together and it all does that on purpose.
Right. I suppose you could play with the track and the Scyphoz cards, but not the other things. But those other things give you movement on the track.
They give you movement on the track. You wouldn't move on the track otherwise.
Yeah.
Unless you want to spend 2 for 1. That would suck.
That would be not great.
Yeah.
So it's funny because when reviewing an expansion like this, it's hard to come down to a final score. Oh, I think we should first maybe answer a few common questions in expansions, right?
Okay.
First common question that people ask, is this a game that you would teach with this expansion in the box? Like to newcomers?
I think you could, because the big changes really are the track and then getting the objectives and the Scyphoz cards or whatever. And I feel like those aren't too much. It's not too much heavy lifting.
Okay.
I don't know if I would, but you could.
I would be reticent to, but of the bigger involved games that have an expansion that come out, this one wouldn't be too much harder than just teaching base Revive.
Right.
Revive is already an involved game.
It's so much, so it feels like you're adding in 2 extra things to a game that already has 80. So.
Okay, so that's, I think, the first common question. Second common question, for us, when we come back to Revive, are we ever going to play without the expansion?
I think that this is different for us. Like, if I had this copy at home... Do we have a copy of this at home?
We don't.
We don't. So if I had a copy at home, I would just put this in and just play with it from this point on. Because we use the Dice Tower library, and I don't think we're trying to not put expansions in the Dice Tower library, this is too hard to put in and take out constantly.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So depending on who your audience is, or you're going to have to sort out the tokens at the end of every game, because next game you might end up teaching it to new people and not want to teach this overhead.
Yeah.
I don't even think it's going to go into the Dice Tower library copy because of that. Because that extra overhead is enough that it might be the difference between me teaching it at a convention with the expansion, or without.
Yeah.
I would prefer to teach it without. But yeah, for a personal copy, if you play Revive a lot,
I would definitely throw this in, yeah.
I'd throw it in, and it would just kind of stay in there, mixed in always.
Yeah, I think it just gives you more strategy lines that you can lean on.
And then third question, can you fit it on an airplane tray table?
No, you cannot.
Okay, so let's go to
And it
scores.
does take up a little bit more space. Okay, I'm going to give this an 8. I think that it is solid. It is good. There's some really good expansion stuff to it. I do feel like when I was pulling out those module tokens, I just inconveniently kept drawing those, like revealing those on my turn, and then they'd come up the market, and then on your turn, I'd get frustrated. I'd finally grab one, and then I would reveal like a basic token to you, and they're not good income, and that's what I love about those. So that's what I think marked it down from an 8.5, was just that I don't love those module tokens. Everything else I really thoroughly enjoy, and that's why it's a solid 8, because an 8 is a great score. I enjoy the track, I enjoy the cards, I enjoy just a lot of good stuff. So this is a very solid expansion for this game.
That's interesting. I thought you might come in higher because of how much you love the base game.
Mm-hmm.
I think that this is an expansion that's very much geared towards people who play Revive a lot.
Yes.
And even though I wouldn't say that we play it a lot, because with our job as reviewers, we don't play any single game
We don't.
that often, as much as I would want. But I still found that this is a good expansion for rejuvenating a little bit more excitement into the game.
Mm-hmm.
And we haven't even played through like all of the content in the basic game.
Yeah.
I've probably replayed the same faction a few times and then grabbed a different one and be like, I still haven't found everything in there. But I think that this is such a good expansion. I'm giving it an 8.5 because there's not any part of it that I go, man, that part's a drag. Right? Mm-hmm. Everything else is really solid, but that new track, the new Scyphoz cards are so cool that I would just personally always play with it if I could. You know, barring teaching new people.
Yeah.
I don't think it's an essential expansion in the sense that the basic game, there's plenty to play without it. So if you are new to Revive, I don't think that you need to get this for a while.
Yeah.
But if at some point you want to, I wholeheartedly recommend it. 8.5, a seal of excellence for me.
Cool. Well, there you go. It gets an almost seal and then a total seal.
Mm-hmm.
So it is totally sealing. Is that a term? It's a term.
You're not going to make totally sealing happen.
It's a term now. All right. Well, thanks for joining us today. I'm Wendy Yi.
And I'm Chris Yi.
And enjoy those Scyphoz cards.
I Google searched the pronunciation of Scyphoz, and it auto-corrected the Scyphozoa. This whole review is a sham. We have to re-record it.
Okay.
That was way loud.
Really loud. Okay, you recorded by yourself. Yeah.
Hey everybody, my name is Chris Yi. Today I'm going to be taking a look at the Revive expansion.